What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Now in this video we're gonna be talking about Thunkable, which is a really cool no-code tool, meaning you could build a lot of different apps without writing a single line of code. And in this video we're gonna be building a slightly more advanced app than we did in one of the introductory tutorials that I published some time ago. And we're going to be building an app that does translation, meaning you will be able to enter some text in one language and it's going to go out and it's going to translate it to another language. Now, in order to build this app, you need to know a bunch of things about how Thunkable works, and you need to be able to tie it back to some other service that will do the translation for you. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here I am in Thunkable. We're going to go ahead, we're going to create a brand new app. We're going to call this, the name of our brand new app, this is going to be Translate Pro. And we're going to click Create. And now here we are at the basic UI of Thunkable. And this is where you build out your UI without really thinking about how the whole thing is going to work, without thinking about the business logic. So let's go ahead and build a quick UI of how we envision this app to work. So the first thing we need is a label. And this is going to be the name of the app. We're going to center it. We're going to text align it centered. And we are going to call this Translate Pro. Okay, so we can even make it a little bit bigger. Next, we are going to have the text input. Obviously, this is where we are going to have the user enter some text. We're going to have this right here. And then we need a button that will actually go ahead and translate the stuff. This is going to say translate. Something like this. Let's make this button a little bit wider. Yeah, that looks good. Now, whenever I'm designing and building out these apps, I'm not paying too much attention to the UI, to the colors and all that, to the design stuff, because this channel really isn't about the design elements, but you can design it later on if you want. There's all these settings you have. Stuff like that. What I'm really focusing on here is actually making this app functioning. Later on, you can design it to your heart's content. All right, so we have a simple app. We have this text translate, and next we need the result. And this is going to have the result. We're also going to center it here. Center, and we're going to say result. Result, we're going to make it slightly bigger, slightly larger. And this is going to be a label of the output, all right? So now we have the output here. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit longer. All right. There we go. That looks great. All right. And so I'm going to call this label our output. I'm going to call this our input. And now we have something that, at least we have the UI. We have the initial screen. You can create multiple screens if you want, meaning you can have this app work on multiple screens. The first screen is input, then it has the output. Well, I'm just going to keep it simple. We're just going to use one screen. So we can test this app real quick just to see how it works. Obviously, we can enter text here, translate. Nothing is happening because we do not have any logic. The logic is going to be done using something called blocks, which I'm going to show you in a second. But before we can actually do the logic, we need to go out, we need to tie this app with another service that actually will be doing the translation for us. And the service that I like to use is called Rapid API. It has a lot of different services that you can tie pretty much any app, any front-end app, any back-end app. You can use a lot of interesting services here. And I'm not affiliated with this site at all. I just use it for a lot of my own projects. And so as you can see, we have flight data, free SMS, top translation API, city data API. And if we click on top translation APIs, you have a ton of translation APIs. So you can even use Google Translate. You have it here. The service that I really like to use for translation services is this Microsoft Translator, text API documentation. It's a very good service. I enjoy it. I've been using it in some of my own projects. It works fairly well. And so the services here, depending on the service. So if you go to the service here, if you click on pricing, you can see that it's going to be 500,000 requests characters per month, which is the hard limit. So that's fairly a lot, right? So unless your app does, a ton of data, a ton of requests, you're going to be fine in this free service. Later on, you can upgrade if you want, but I'm using the free plan with no issues. And you find all of this info under the pricing tab here. Now, you can also go into specs, and you can understand, you can learn about the different requests that this service supports. And what you want to do next is go into endpoints. And here you can choose the kind of requests you want, and you can issue the sample headers here. So we're going to go into translate. We're going to choose translate. This is a post request. And this is going to be the request we're going to be using. Now it needs a couple of different parameters. We have some optional parameters, and we have some required parameters. So the only parameter it really needs is this text. And the other parameter it really needs is the language, the target language. So it says to. And so if I put ES, that is Spanish, right? And so what you need to put in is the actual code of the country. It's called an ISO code. And so, ES is Spain, DE is Germany, PT is Portugal. Depending on the country, the code is going to be this 2-letter code. And it's kind of like a domain extension. It's kind of like the domain, the end of the domain for different countries. You can look all of that up very easily by Googling. And so if we scroll down, we have this text that we need to translate. You can edit this text, of course. And this text says, I would really like to drive your car around the block a few times. So if we input Spanish and we do test endpoint, we are going to get the Spanish translation. So if we expand this response here, we have the Spanish translation. We can do German as well. So if we put DE, that's Germany. We can test endpoint. We have the German. We can also put, we can put DK, which is Denmark, and we can do that. The target language is not valid. Okay, so it doesn't support certain languages, but I think Italian is supported. We can do IT, and it looks like we got a response right here. And here you go. You have the Italian version. And so what we need to do now is we need to get all of these requests, all of these parameters here into Thunkable and issue that API call and get the data back. So if we go into code snippets, what I like to do is I like to go to JavaScript and do jQuery, right? Because you can easily see what's happening. So for instance, we have the URL, we have the headers, and we have the data. Very, very simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Thunkable here, and we are going to create a sample web API so that this service, once you click on this button, it's going to go out and it's going to execute this request and it's going to get our translated string back. So in order to do that, what you want to do is you want to go into blocks. And in this section, you're going to be setting up the different stuff that's going to be happening, okay? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to advanced and you need to click on this web APIs. You want to click the plus little icon there and you want to enter your parameters. So we're going to go back to Microsoft Translator. We're going to copy and paste this URL here. We're going to paste it right here. And then the query parameters. So we don't really have any query parameters because we're going to be hard coding. So I'm going to be using Spanish as an example. So I'm just hard coding the target language of Spanish. You can also do query parameters. That is really up to you. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to hard code it. For the body, now the body is going to be dynamic, right? It's going to depend what the user is going to enter. And the headers are going to be hard coded as well. So we have 3 headers here. We have content type, application JSON. So we're going to put that in here, application JSON. We're going to add this header. Next header, we have XRapid API key. And this is our API key. This is how we can track how many requests you are issuing with different services. We're going to enter that. We're going to add that. Next, we're going to enter this last header here, Rapid API host. Okay, we have that, and we're going to copy this. All right, so we got this, and we are going to add this. So you want to add these things because if the request, in the sample request, they're using these headers, you want to go ahead and add these headers too. Because if you scroll up, you see that these are the headers, and these 2 are required. This is actually not required, but it's good practice to include it anyway. So we're going to go back to our app. It looks good. The body is going to be added dynamically. We're going to hit submit. And now we have this first API call. You can do a lot of things with it, and I'm going to show you in a second. But what you want to do now is you want to start playing with the logic. And the first step here is this submit button, right? This translate button. Everything starts with this translate button. So we're going to go back to blocks. We're going to hit on button. And when we do that, we have a lot of options that we can do. We want that first option here. This is the click, right? So it says here, when button 1 is click, and it could be any other event here, it can do something. And this is where we want to execute the call, get the data back, parse the data, and show the data. So we have this do. Now we need to fill in this section with our API call. So we're going to go back to advanced. We're going to click here. And once we click our API call, we have lots of options. So what we want to do is we want to choose post. We're going to select this and we're going to drag it right here. Okay, see how it snaps in. Now what we have is a call. But we haven't set the body yet. We have a call. We're just executing the call with an empty body, and we're getting all of these outputs. And then we can actually set the translated text on our web page, on our web app. But the first thing we need to do is we need to set the body. So we're going to go back here, and we need to set the body. So you can click on this. You can drag that just above this thing here, and you want to go into body. And you want to set the body. Now the body, it's not just, text. It's actually an object, right? It's a list. You see how it's an angle bracket and this is a curly braces? The angle bracket means this is an array or a list. And a curly braces means that this is an object. So you have to do it the Thunkable way. So what that means is that you need to create a brand new list. You're going to go into list. You're going to drag this list here. And you see how it has a list with 3 items. We only need 1 item, right? So we're going to go in here, and we're going to delete 2 of these items because we only have 1 item, right? If you go back here, you see that this is an array, and there's only 1 item, which is the object here. So you're going to go back here, and now we have 1 item. Okay, so if we go back here, it has 1 item. Actually, we're going to delete this as well. Now we have 1 item. This thing is going to be an object. So we're going to go into objects, and we are going to we're going to create an object, right? We're going to drag that here, and we're going to do that. Next, we're going to delete this thing, and we're going to create a brand new object. Now, this object is going to have a text, and then it's going to have a text field, right? So we're going to drag that here. And so what we have so far is we have a list, create object with fields. And remember, if you look here, we have a field text and the actual, the value here. So we have create object with text, and now we need the value. So we got to go to the input and grab the value. Okay, we're going to drag and drop this thing right here and snap it into place. And this is going to be inputs text. And now what we just did is we essentially created an array with 1 item, which is an object, where you have the key value pair. The key is text, and the value is the inputs text. Now, before we can actually snap it, we need to convert this thing into a JSON object, okay? Because we're sending a call. A call does not understand a list, an object. It only understands JSON. So we need to go to Web API, and what we need to do is, actually, we need to go to objects, and we need to generate a JSON from an object. We're going to go in here, and we're going to snap that together. Now we have a JSON. Now we can snap it together. And so now we have a JSON representation of an object, because the way you want to think about it is that this is JSON. Schematically speaking, this is an object. But if you look at it, this is JSON, right? You cannot send an object anywhere, but you can send a JSON representation of that object somewhere. It's kind of like JSON is the written version of a language. A language is just a language, but JSON is how you write it, how you communicate with it. And so here we need to create a JSON object. So now whatever the user enters inside the app is going to be converted into an object that this API expects, and it's going to send it properly. Now it's going to, set the body correctly, and then we're going to send all the stuff, and now our request is going to be able to send in properly. The next issue is how to get the output. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, let's play with the app a little bit. Let's go into output, and let's click on output here. And let's set outputs text. Let's drag this thing here. And when it's done, we want to just, just set it to done. Something like this. So when we run the app, it's going to say done. So let's see if that works. Just to see if things are working. So it doesn't matter what I enter. You see it says done there. So the part of the app is working. The logic is working. We're going to close the preview. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get this response and see if we can actually get the response object. So we're going to drag this response and we're going to set the text to the response. So we're going to run this app and we're going to have a weird kind of, so if we enter some text or hello, hit translate, we have the response. And this response is essentially what it looks here, right? So if we hit results, you're going to see this, right? So example responses, detective language translations. This is exactly what we're getting, detective language, etc., etc. Now, this response looks something like this. This is what it looks like. What we need to do is we need to extract this text here, right? This is a little bit of a challenging part because the way Thunkable works, I'm going to show you in a second. We are essentially printing this whole thing, right? This is exactly what this response looks like, right? You see that detective language. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Let's make our thing bigger here. Let's make this thing a little bit bigger so you can see it. That way it's easier to debug. Let's run the app again. And so if I enter hello, we have the response, right? It says hola, but we need to, so yeah, it works already, right? I can say, what are you doing? And we hit translate, and you see it says that, ¿Qué estás haciendo?, which is the Spanish translation. We're getting, but we need to just get this thing here. We don't need all of this. We just need this text thing. And that is our next challenge, and that is what we're going to be doing now, okay? So if we go here, if we close the preview, we go into blocks. What we need to do is we need to extract from response. We need to extract the actual stuff. And in order to do that, we first need to get, we have an array. We need to get the first object of the array, right? And so in order to do that, we need to do a little bit of list manipulation, right? This is a list. This array is a list. This is an array of one object. So what we need to do is we need to do some list manipulation. So we're going to go into lists and we're going to get the first item. So if we scroll down here, you can see that right here, this thing here, if you hover over, you see that it returns the item at the specified position in a list. So we're going to click on that and we're going to drag it here. Now this is a list and now response is a list, okay? And so what we want to do is we want to click that there, and this is going to be a response, right? This is not going to be a list. So if we get that out, this is going to be here, okay? Instead of this random list that it presents us, we can delete this. And now, actually, yeah, we can delete this thing right here. And now what we have is we are getting the first item in the list, right? So what we're doing here is we're getting this object. Now, before we can work with this response, we need to convert this response into a JSON. And in order to do that, we need to go into objects and we need to get object from JSON, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to drag that there. We need to put it in between. Okay, so we're going to go in here. We're going to put that there. We're going to attach that there. And now if we run it, we are going to start getting some data together, right? If we enter some random string, we have an object now. This is this object here, right? This is this first object. Now we need to get these translations. We need to get this key, this field translation. This is going to be an array. It has an object. And then we need to get another key, which is text. So we're going to go back. We're going to close the preview. And now we need to do the same thing. This time we're going to go into objects. We need to get property. And so what we want to do is we want to get property. We're going to get this, get property. And the property is going to be translations. We already have the object. This is the object. We just need these translations. We need that array. And then we need the first element. And then we need another property. And that's how we got to do it. So if we go in here, we are getting this object. Now, we need to put that here, and we need to call this translations. Okay, so if we go in here, we put that in there. Now we are getting, what do we have? We have a property, right? We have the property. We are getting this array here. Now we need to get the first element again. So we're going to go back to the list. We're going to scroll down. We need to get this one right here. We're going to go in here. We need to put all of this here. And now we can delete this. We don't need that. And now we are getting the list. Okay, so now we have an object that we got. We got translations, and now we got this whole thing. Now we have an object. Now we need to get another field, text. And that's all we need to do. That is the last thing. So we have this object. Now we need to go back to objects and get property. We're going to go in here. We're going to come here. This is of an object, and we need to put text. I think it's lowercase. It is lowercase. Yep, that's fine. And we're going to snap that there. Now, if I did it correctly, we got exactly what we wanted to do. Let's resize it, and let's play it. And let's try hello. And there you go. It says hola. How about something more complicated? What time is it? There you go. This is the Spanish translation. We can put something else. We can put Spain, and that's going to translate it into España. And so as you can see, we are getting the right thing. Remember, we have this is our response here, and this is our input. This is our request, and this is our response. And we are just extracting that little thing. And there's lots of interesting things that you can do, but all we want is this text, right? This is all we want, right? Depending on what we send, we just want that text. And that is exactly what this piece of code does. If we go in here, all of this piece of code, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to manipulate this JSON response here that I have here on the screen. And that is a very, very simple app that you can build. Translate Pro, we called it. You can type something, you can run it, and it's going to give you a response simply because we are executing an API call to another service that does the work for us. All right, guys. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. These are the building blocks of building a more complex app that you can go out and you can build any kind of app that you want using the services on Rapid API or another API provider of your choice. And so I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what kind of Thunkable tutorials you want to see next, what kind of issues you are having with Thunkable, or maybe you have some other ideas for new videos. I would love to hear what you have to say. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've gotten value here, I would highly, highly appreciate a like and a subscription to this channel, because this channel is all about building apps without writing a single line of code using modern no app builder. So again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.